The Imperial Command Center was never quiet, not even in the deepest hours of the rotation cycle. Lines of officers stood before glowing displays, watching hundreds of ships moving across the Black Sea of space. The Galactic Empire had ruled for 10,000 years, and in all that time no one had ever dared to challenge its power. Until today. Admiral Xylar stood before the main view screen, his claws resting lightly on the polished rail. The room buzzed with low voices and mechanical beeps. He was calm, he always was, but his tail twitched in the air, a small sign of unease. "Report," he said. His voice was sharp, like cold metal. "Sir," said a young sensor officer, "long-range scanners picked up an unknown vessel entering the outer edge of the Helion system. It's not in our database." "Not in the database?" Xylar frowned. That was impossible. The Empire's archives recorded every known species, every ship design, every engine signature. "Bring it on screen." The image shifted, and the strange vessel appeared, a dark, angular ship gliding silently through the void. It had no transponder code, no identification lights, and no visible weapon mounts. Its hull was a strange shade of black that seemed to absorb the light around it. Xylar narrowed his eyes. Magnify. As the image grew larger, a murmur spread across the command deck. The ship was massive, larger than a dreadnought, but its surface was smooth, almost organic. It looked wrong. No reactor emissions, no drive signature. It just drifted forward, like a shadow carried by a cosmic wind. "Sir," another officer said, his voice trembling, "we sent a scan pulse, but it bounced back. Our systems can't penetrate its hull." "Impossible," Xylar hissed. "There's no known material that could do that." The communications officer suddenly spoke up. "Admiral, we're receiving a signal from the object. Put it through." The speakers crackled with static for a moment, then a calm human voice echoed through the room. "This is Captain Aaron Holt of the Terran Federation ship Resolute. We are here to reclaim what was taken." Every officer froze. The word Terran hit like a thunderbolt. The humans? Extinct for nearly 3 millennia, or so everyone believed. Xylar's tail lashed the air. Terran Federation? There is no such power. Humans were wiped out in the Orion Wars. "Apparently not, sir," whispered the aide beside him. The transmission continued. "You have invaded and enslaved countless worlds. That ends now." Then the signal cut off. Silence filled the command center. The crew exchanged nervous looks. Xylar broke the silence. "Send a squadron. Disable that vessel. I want it brought to the capital for study." Moments later, 3 Imperial destroyers jumped into formation and advanced toward the unknown ship. Their plasma cannons charged, their targeting systems locked on. "Target acquired," said one of the bridge officers. "Firing." A flash of light filled the screen. The first destroyer vanished. No explosion, no wreckage, just gone. The second followed a second later, its systems going dark before the sensors lost track. The third tried to retreat, but a thin beam of blue light struck it, slicing the ship clean in half. Gasps echoed across the command center. What kind of weapon is that?" someone whispered. "Unknown," said the science officer. His voice was shaking. "Energy readings are off the scale." The human ship drifted closer. It didn't fire again. It didn't even change course. It simply passed through the wreckage of the destroyed destroyers, silent and steady. Then, for a brief moment, the sensors picked up a faint signature, a gravitational pulse, the kind seen only near black holes. "Sir!" cried the sensor officer. "That ship! It just folded space around itself. That's not possible. No one has mastered real space folding." Admiral Xylar's scales bristled. "No one, except maybe the old gods," he muttered. The human ship vanished. Not jumped, not warped. It simply disappeared. The command room erupted into chaos. Officers shouted, trying to re-establish contact. Alarms blared. "Where did it go?" Xylar demanded. "Everywhere and nowhere, sir," shouted the science officer. "It's using a propulsion method that bends dimensions." Xylar stood frozen. For the first time in his career, he felt true fear. He turned slowly to his aide. "Prepare a transmission to the Imperial Council. Tell them this: the humans are back." The aide nodded and rushed away, but before he could even open the communication channel, the ship reappeared, this time right above the Imperial command planet. The giant warship hovered in orbit, blocking the sun. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire trembled. The Resolute hung in orbit above the Imperial capital like a silent god. Its dark hull reflected no light, its engines made no sound, and every defense system on the planet aimed directly at it. But no one dared to fire. In the Imperial Palace, panic spread like wildfire. Ministers, generals, and scientists argued over one another, their voices loud and desperate. Admiral Xylar stood in the center of the Grand Chamber, waiting for the Emperor's arrival. His scales still trembled from what he had seen. The chamber doors opened. The Emperor of the Galactic Empire entered, his tall figure wrapped in shimmering robes of gold and silver. His 4 eyes burned with anger. "Admiral Xylar," the Emperor said slowly, "explain to me how an extinct species is hovering over my throne world." Xylar bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, our sensors confirm it. The ship belongs to humans. Their captain identified himself as Aaron Holt of the Terran Federation. Their technology is beyond anything we have ever seen." "Humans," the Emperor muttered, as if the word itself was poison. "The barbarians who destroyed themselves in nuclear fire. You expect me to believe they've returned?" Before Xylar could answer, a blinding flash of light filled the room. A holographic figure appeared in the air above the throne. It was human, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a simple dark uniform. His eyes were calm but sharp. "This is Captain Aaron Holt of the Terran Federation," the image said. "To the rulers of the Galactic Empire, this is your only warning." Every alien in the chamber froze. Even the Emperor leaned forward. "You conquered and enslaved dozens of human colonies thousands of years ago," the hologram continued. "We remember everything. You erased our name from history, but you did not destroy us. We built our strength in the dark, hidden beyond your borders, waiting for this moment." The Emperor rose to his feet. "You threaten the Empire?" he shouted at the projection. The hologram didn't react. "We don't seek your destruction. We seek justice. Release all enslaved worlds. Dismantle your war fleets. Step down peacefully, or face consequences you cannot imagine." Then the hologram vanished. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the chamber exploded in noise again. "Empty threats," barked General Kor, the commander of planetary defense. "A single ship cannot threaten an empire of 1,000 worlds." "Maybe not a single ship," Xylar said quietly. "But what if there are more?" The room fell silent again. The Emperor's voice was cold. "How many more could there be?" Xylar looked at the ground. "We don't know, sire. But that vessel destroyed 3 destroyers in seconds. Its energy output defies all known science." The Emperor waved a hand. "Prepare the fleet. I want every available ship in orbit. If the humans want war, we'll give them one." Within hours, the skies of the capital filled with Imperial battleships. Thousands of cannons charged and targeted the Resolute. Still, it remained motionless. Then, suddenly, the planet's communication satellites lit up. Every screen, every terminal, every display across the Empire showed the same image, a dead world. On the Resolute, Captain Holt stood before the holographic map of the galaxy. Hundreds of blue lights blinked, signals from other human ships scattered across the stars. The Empire took our ancestors, turned them into slaves, Holt said softly. We gave them centuries to repent. They didn't. Now they will remember the cost of forgetting humanity. Tessa stepped forward. What's our next move? Holt looked out into the endless dark. The capital, he said. It's time they see what real fear looks like. The final scene fades to the image of the human fleet assembling once more, their ships folding through space like shadows returning home. In the silence, a single line of text appears on the screen. The war for the galaxy has begun. The great halls of the Imperial Palace had once been filled with the sound of triumph, songs of conquest, celebrations of victory, and the endless pride of 1,000 worlds. Now they echoed with whispers of fear. The Emperor sat alone in his throne chamber. The lights were dim. The walls seemed to breathe with shadows. Reports from every corner of the Empire lay scattered around him. Worlds surrendering without a fight. Fleets vanishing into silence. Entire star systems cutting communication out of terror. He slammed his clawed hand onto the table, scattering the data crystals. They don't fight, he growled. They don't demand. They just watch. Admiral Xylar, standing before him, looked tired. His scales had lost their shine. They are breaking us without a single battle, Your Majesty. The fear spreads faster than any weapon. Fear! The Emperor spat the word like poison. We are the Galactic Empire. Fear is for the weak. But even as he spoke, the room trembled. The lights flickered again. Another power failure? Xylar asked quietly. The Emperor scowled. Our engineers are useless. But the truth was worse. The failures, as were not random. They came at specific moments, right before another human broadcast appeared. A hologram flickered to life in front of them. Captain Aaron Holt stood again, his human face calm, his voice low. This message is not for your armies, he said. It is for your people. Then the image expanded, broadcasting across the planet. Every citizen of the capital world saw the same transmission. In the streets, in homes, in factories, on warship bridges. This is the Terran Federation, Holt said. You have been told lies. Your leaders call us monsters. But we were the ones you enslaved. You destroyed our home, and yet we survived. We built a new world out of your cruelty. Images appeared behind him. Ancient footage of human slaves chained in alien mines, their bodies frail, their eyes filled with fire. Now, Holt said, we come not as conquerors, but as witnesses. The Empire will end, not by our guns, but by your own fear. Then the screen went black. On every Imperial world, riots broke out. Some shouted for revenge, others for surrender. Governors panicked, unable to control their people. In the capital, rumors spread like wildfire, that the humans could hear thoughts, that they were spirits from beyond time, that they could make entire planets vanish with a whisper. Admiral Xylar entered the Emperor's war room hours later. The outer colonies have stopped answering our calls, and the Ninth Fleet has defected. The Emperor turned slowly. Defected? Yes, Your Majesty. They sent a message before they disappeared. We choose humanity. The Emperor's claws tightened. Then they will burn with them. He stood and walked to the massive window overlooking the dark planet below. I will not be remembered as the ruler who bowed to ghosts. He turned to Xylar. Prepare Project Eclipse. Xylar froze. Sire, that project was forbidden for a reason. The energy core is unstable. I don't care, the Emperor shouted. If the humans want to play gods, we will show them divine wrath. On the Resolute, Captain Holt stood before the holographic map of the galaxy. Hundreds of blue lights blinked, signals from other human ships scattered across the stars. "The Empire took our ancestors, turned them into slaves," Holt said softly. "We gave them centuries to repent. They didn't. Now they will remember the cost of forgetting humanity." Tessa stepped forward. "What's our next move?" Holt looked out into the endless dark. "The capital," he said. "It's time they see what real fear looks like." The final scene fades to the image of the human fleet assembling once more, their ships folding through space like shadows returning home. In the silence, a single line of text appears on the screen. "The war for the galaxy has begun." The great halls of the Imperial Palace had once been filled with the sound of triumph, songs of conquest, celebrations of victory, and the endless pride of 1,000 worlds. Now they echoed with whispers of fear. The Emperor sat alone in his throne chamber. The lights were dim. The walls seemed to breathe with shadows. Reports from every corner of the Empire lay scattered around him. Worlds surrendering without a fight, fleets vanishing into silence, entire star systems cutting communication out of terror. He slammed his clawed hand onto the table, scattering the data crystals. "They don't fight," he growled. "They don't demand. They just watch." Admiral Xylar, standing before him, looked tired. His scales had lost their shine. "They are breaking us without a single battle, Your Majesty. The fear spreads faster than any weapon." "Fear!" The Emperor spat the word like poison. "We are the Galactic Empire. Fear is for the weak." But even as he spoke, the room trembled. The lights flickered again. "Another power failure?" Xylar asked quietly. The Emperor scowled. "Our engineers are useless." But the truth was worse. The failures, as were not random. They came at specific moments, right before another human broadcast appeared. A hologram flickered to life in front of them. Captain Aaron Holt stood again, his human face calm, his voice low. "This message is not for your armies," he said. "It is for your people." Then the image expanded, broadcasting across the planet. Every citizen of the capital world saw the same transmission. In the streets, in homes, in factories, on warship bridges. "This is the Terran Federation," Holt said. "You have been told lies. Your leaders call us monsters. But we were the ones you enslaved. You destroyed our home, and yet we survived. We built a new world out of your cruelty." Images appeared behind him. Ancient footage of human slaves chained in alien mines, their bodies frail, their eyes filled with fire. "Now," Holt said, "we come not as conquerors, but as witnesses. The Empire will end, not by our guns, but by your own fear." Then the screen went black. On every Imperial world, riots broke out. Some shouted for revenge, others for surrender. Governors panicked, unable to control their people. In the capital, rumors spread like wildfire, that the humans could hear thoughts, that they were spirits from beyond time, that they could make entire planets vanish with a whisper. Admiral Xylar entered the Emperor's war room hours later. "The outer colonies have stopped answering our calls, and the Ninth Fleet has defected." The Emperor turned slowly. "Defected?" "Yes, Your Majesty. They sent a message before they disappeared. We choose humanity." The Emperor's claws tightened. "Then they will burn with them." He stood and walked to the massive window overlooking the dark planet below. "I will not be remembered as the ruler who bowed to ghosts." He turned to Xylar. "Prepare Project Eclipse." Xylar froze. "Sire, that project was forbidden for a reason. The energy core is unstable." "I don't care," the Emperor shouted. "If the humans want to play gods, we will show them divine wrath." It was a human planet, or rather, what was left of one. Its surface was ash, its oceans gone. A narrator's voice spoke over the image, deep, and sorrowful. This was Earth. Billions watched as old images flickered across the screen. Cities, forests, people laughing, children playing. Then came the fires, nuclear explosions, world wars, devastation. Humanity destroyed itself once, the voice continued. But we learned. We changed. We built machines that think, ships that fold space, and weapons that bend gravity itself. We became something more. Then the image shifted to a massive shipyard floating around a dark star. Thousands of human warships were being constructed in silence, sleek and powerful. The message ended with a single sentence. We have returned, not for vengeance, but to remind you what fear feels like. The broadcast ended. On the command deck of the Resolute, Captain Aaron Holt stood before the observation window. Around him, his crew worked in calm silence. Status report, Holt said. All systems stable. Imperial fleet is mobilizing, said Lieutenant Chen. They've surrounded us. Good, Holt replied. Let them see what they're facing. He turned to his second-in-command, a tall woman named Tessa Varin. Transmit the signal to the rest of the fleet. She nodded. Transmission sent. Far beyond the Empire's border, hidden behind dust clouds and dark stars, hundreds, no, thousands of human ships came online. Their reactors glowed softly as they received the signal. The human fleet was no myth. It was real. Back in the Imperial Command Center, chaos ruled. Reports came in from every sector, strange readings, unknown vessels appearing across the galaxy. Entire fleets were vanishing without a fight. Sir, shouted an officer, they're using something, some kind of gravitational distortion. They just disappear and reappear somewhere else. Admiral Xylar clenched his claws. They're not fighting us. They're showing us they can destroy us anytime they wish. Above the capital, the Resolute moved slightly, turning to face the planet's main defense grid. Then, without firing a shot, it emitted a pulse of blue light. Every weapon on the planet shut down. The Emperor watched helplessly from his palace balcony as the stars dimmed, the power failed, and the great empire he had ruled for centuries fell into silence. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Empire realized something terrible. The humans were not extinct. They had evolved. And they were angry. The Emperor of the Galactic Empire had never known fear. He was born on a world where storms of plasma raged across the sky, and only the strongest survived. Yet now, as he stared at the silent black shape above his capital, fear gnawed at his heart like cold iron. Across the galaxy, every world had seen the humans' message, the image of the dead planet Earth, the promise of vengeance wrapped in calm words. Panic spread like wildfire. Entire colonies stopped their work, their people whispering the same word in terror. Humans. In the Imperial War Council chamber, Admiral Xylar stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Dozens of red markers flashed where human ships had been sighted. No battles, no debris, just sudden appearances and disappearances, like ghosts. Their fleet moves through folded space, said Xylar. Our scanners can't predict where they'll appear next. They strike, disable, and vanish. No casualties, no destruction, just silence. General Kor slammed his clawed fist on the table. Then we strike back. If they want fear, we'll give them fire. We'll burn every sector they touch. The Emperor's gaze was cold. And how do you plan to fight an enemy you can't find, General? Kor hesitated. We'll lure them in. They believe. We're afraid. So we'll give them bait. Xylar's tail twitched uneasily. Bait? Far above, on the Resolute, Captain Holt watched the chaos unfold through a series of data feeds. His crew had intercepted every Imperial transmission. Tessa Varin frowned. They're collapsing faster than expected. Whole systems are revolting. The Emperor is cornered. Good, Holt said softly. The truth is doing what our weapons never could. Do we strike now? She asked. Not yet. Let them destroy themselves first. He turned toward the observation window. They think we're here for revenge. But revenge is too small. We're here to change the galaxy forever. In the Imperial laboratories, deep beneath the surface of the capital, engineers worked in panic. Massive machines pulsed with unstable energy. Glowing spheres of light floated above containment rings, humming with dangerous power. Project Eclipse, a superweapon that drew energy from a dying star. It was meant to crush entire fleets in a single wave. But it had never been tested safely. As the scientists worked, alarms blared. The energy levels spiked. "Containment field dropping!" shouted one technician. "It's destabilizing!" "Hold it steady," Xylar ordered. "If we lose control, the entire planet will—" He stopped. Every screen flickered. The human symbol appeared. The blue crest of the Terran Federation. A voice echoed through the lab. Calm, human, unmistakable. "Stop," said Captain Holt. "You're about to end your own world." "How? How did they access our systems?" shouted one of the engineers. The Emperor's voice thundered through the comms. "Ignore them! Continue the sequence!" The lights dimmed. The containment field cracked. A bright pulse of energy surged outward, shaking the entire facility. "Shut it down!" Xylar roared. Then, silence. The machines went dark. Every display screen turned black. A single line of human text appeared on all monitors. "We will not let you destroy you, selves." When the lights returned, the Emperor's fury burned brighter than any star. "They control our weapons," he said in disbelief. "They control our power grids, our fleets, our very air." Xylar looked down. "They control our fear, Your Majesty." The Emperor turned away, trembling. "Then tell me, Admiral, how do we fight an enemy that fights inside our minds?" Xylar had no answer. On the Resolute, Holt watched the planet below through the wide glass viewport. "Phase 1, complete," Tessa said quietly. Holt nodded. "Good. Now it's time for them to understand the second lesson." She looked at him. "Which is?" He turned toward her, his eyes like cold fire. "That mercy can be far more terrifying than war." The camera fades to black. The sound of a heartbeat echoes, slow and heavy. Then a whisper. "The humans are coming." The Imperial Palace was silent. No music, no servants, no triumph. Only the soft hum of failing generators and the distant rumble of a dying world. The Emperor stood before the great window of his throne chamber, staring at the stars. Once, they had been his. Each light in the sky was a conquered world, a symbol of his unshakable rule. Now, every one of them was falling, surrendering, rebelling, or simply vanishing. He turned as Admiral Xylar entered. The Admiral looked exhausted. His uniform was torn, and the glow of his rank insignia had dimmed. "Report," the Emperor said, voice low. Xylar hesitated. "The Central Fleet has disbanded, Your Majesty. The governors have declared independence. Many are swearing loyalty to the humans." The Emperor's eyes flashed with rage. "Traitors! All of them!" He slammed his hand down on the table, shattering a crystal map. "Do they not understand what humanity is? They are chaos. They destroy everything they touch." Xylar stayed silent. He had seen the broadcasts, the faces of humans speaking softly to alien crowds offering peace instead of conquest. The people believed them. Your Majesty, Xylar said carefully, perhaps they are not the same humans we once fought. The Emperor turned sharply. Don't speak that nonsense. They are predators hiding behind kind words. He stopped as the lights flickered again. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. Captain Aaron Holt. His calm eyes seemed to look directly into the Emperor's soul. Your reign is ending, Holt said softly. Not by our hands, but by your own fear. The Emperor snarled. You dare to lecture me? You're an animal that crawled out of its own ashes. Holt's image didn't react. Perhaps, but even ashes can burn again. Then the hologram shifted. The walls of the throne room faded, replaced by stars, and a colossal ship unlike any other appeared above the palace. It wasn't the Resolute. It was larger, vast, living, and radiant, shaped like wings of light stretching across the sky. The Emperor stepped back, stunned. What is that? Our home, Holt's voice said. The Ark of Humanity, Saul reborn, built from the remains of a dead star and the bones of Earth itself. The Emperor's heart pounded. Impossible. The hologram faded, replaced by real light as the sky above the palace burned with the image of the ship descending into orbit. Across the planet, every Imperial citizen looked up and fell silent. Even those who had once hated humans could not look away. The ship glowed brighter than a sun, yet it didn't blind them. It illuminated the capital like a dawn after endless night. Inside the palace, the Emperor turned to Xylar. Order our planetary defenses to fire. Xylar didn't move. I said fire, the Emperor shouted. Xylar bowed his head. The weapons don't respond, sire. They've been deactivated. The Emperor's claws curled. Then I will do it myself. He stormed toward the command console built into his throne, entering override codes with shaking hands. They think they can control my world, my throne. Suddenly, the console went dark. A human voice spoke through the system. You don't need to do this, said Holt. No one has to die. The Emperor roared. You took everything from me. No, Holt said softly. You took everything from yourself. For a moment, there was silence, only the faint hum of power in the air. Then something unexpected happened. The great doors of the throne room opened, and dozens of Imperial citizens entered. Unarmed, wearing rags, their faces pale with fear. Behind them came soldiers, but they weren't here to fight. They laid down their weapons. Your Majesty, said one of them, voice trembling, the people are leaving the cities. They're following the humans. The Emperor looked around wildly. They can't. I am their Emperor. But even his own guards avoided his eyes. He raised his voice, desperate. They'll enslave you. No, said the soldier. They freed my family from the mines of Serra IV. The humans kept their word. The Emperor stared, speechless. The realization struck him like a blade. His empire hadn't been conquered. It had stopped believing in him. He turned toward the window. The great ship Saul Reborn hovered above, beautiful and still. He could see tiny human vessels landing in the capital below, not with weapons, but with supplies, medicine, and light. He fell to his knees. Why didn't you just destroy us? He whispered. Holt's voice echoed softly in his mind, almost like an answer. Because that's what you would have done. Hours later, the Emperor sat alone on his throne, the lights around him fading. Xylar stood beside him one last time. What will you do now, Majesty? The Emperor's voice was barely a whisper. A ruler without fear is nothing. He looked out the window again, at the stars that were no longer his. Perhaps they were right to return. Xylar bowed deeply, then walked away, leaving the great, All in silence. As the Emperor stared at the light of the human ship, tears glimmered in his eyes. He had ruled for 10,000 years, and in 1 week the humans had taught him what true power was. Not domination, not conquest, but the courage to choose mercy. The final light of the palace flickered and went out. Far above, aboard Saul Reborn, Captain Holt stood by the observation window, watching the once mighty world fade into twilight. Tessa Varin stood beside him. "It's over," she said. Holt shook his head. "No, it's only the beginning. The Empire has fallen, but the galaxy still needs to learn." "Learn what?" she asked softly. He smiled faintly. "That humanity didn't come back to rule the stars. We came back to remind them what it means to be alive." The stars reflected in his eyes as the ship turned and vanished into folded space, leaving the galaxy forever changed. It had been 1 year since the fall of the Galactic Empire. The stars that once burned with fear now shone with a quiet kind of peace. Across hundreds of worlds, chains were broken and flags of rebellion were lowered. The humans, the long-lost children of Earth, had done what no species had ever done before. They ended a galactic tyranny without turning the galaxy to ash. On the shining decks of the Saul Reborn, Captain Aaron Holt looked down at a world reborn. Seraph 4, once a slave planet, now covered with green fields and cities rising from the ruins. Children of many species played together under open skies. No overseers, no soldiers, just laughter. Holt watched silently. His second-in-command, Tessa Varin, joined him at the observation window. "Hard to believe this was once a battlefield," she said softly. He nodded. "It's what we always hoped for. A second chance. Not just for humans, but for everyone." Tessa smiled faintly. "The galaxy's starting to call us the children of Earth. They say we brought light back to the stars." Holt's gaze remained distant. "Light always brings shadows, Tessa. Remember that." She frowned. "You think they'll rise again? The old empire?" Holt didn't answer. His eyes shifted to the holographic map before him, dozens of glowing points marking unrest across distant systems. The empire was gone, but not its followers. Far away, deep in the ruins of the imperial capital, Admiral Xylar stood in a dark chamber lit only by the glow of dying machinery. He was no longer wearing his uniform. His once proud armor was broken, the imperial crest scratched away. Yet in his eyes there was no defeat, only quiet resolve. Before him stood a group of survivors, former generals, scientists, and loyalists. They had gathered in secret beneath the collapsed halls of the palace. One of them, a thin, pale creature named Varin, spoke first. "The humans dismantled our fleets, destroyed our command lines, and shut down our weapons. What do we have left?" "Knowledge," Xylar said. "And memory." Varin sneered. "Memory doesn't win wars." Xylar looked at him coldly. "No, but understanding does. We failed because we never tried to understand them." He pointed to the hologram hovering above the table, an image of a human brain linked with machine patterns. "They've merged with their technology. They don't just use it. They are it. That's how they fold space, control energy, and disable our systems. Their minds command the stars." The others stared, silent. Varin finally whispered, "You speak of them like gods." Xylar turned away. "No, not gods, but perhaps the next step." Back aboard Saul Reborn, Captain Holt walked through the ship's vast central garden, a green sanctuary filled with trees grown from Earth's last seeds. Artificial sunlight streamed through the dome, casting warm light on the faces of his crew. He paused beside a simorl, all memorial stone carved into the soil. The engraving read, "Earth is gone, but her children still dream." Tessa found him there. "The new council meeting starts in 10 minutes. The colonies are asking for guidance on how to build their own fleets. Defensive ones this time." Holt nodded. "They should. Peace doesn't last if you can't defend it." She studied his face. "You don't trust them, do you?" "I trust individuals," he said quietly. "Not empires. We learned that the hard way." They walked together down the long hall toward the command deck. The ship hummed softly beneath their feet, alive with power and purpose. On the main display, hundreds of human ships moved across the galaxy, not as conquerors but as protectors, carrying food, medicine, and hope. Yet among those glowing blue signals, a few red ones blinked in the darkness. "Unregistered signals," Tessa said. "Outer sectors, beyond the old border." Holt's voice was calm. "Let them come." He turned toward her, his eyes steady and unreadable. "The galaxy is rebuilding, Tessa, but history has a habit of repeating itself. Someone, somewhere, is already dreaming of power." Far beyond the known worlds, inside the broken hull of an abandoned Imperial ship, Xylar stood before a massive machine, the last remaining fragment of Project Eclipse. It had been dormant since the humans shut it down. Until now. Xylar placed his clawed hand on the control panel. The lights flickered. The air hummed with energy. "You showed mercy," he whispered to the stars. "But mercy can make even gods blind." The machine responded with a deep pulse, and for the first time in months, a dark spark flickered across the void, unseen by human sensors. A new signal. A new beginning. Back aboard Sol Reborn, Tessa turned from her console. "Captain, I'm picking up a gravitational fluctuation from the outer rim. Very faint, but unnatural." Holt approached. "Show me." The screen displayed a small ripple in the edge of known space, a distortion, like a heartbeat in the dark. "Another storm?" Tessa asked. Holt shook his head slowly. "No. Something's waking up." He straightened, his voice firm. "Send a message to all Terran ships. Quietly. Tell them to prepare." Tessa nodded. "For war?" He looked out the window, where the stars shimmered in peaceful silence. "For whatever comes next." In the final scene, the camera pulls back, away from the human ship, away from the quiet worlds, into the deep, empty black beyond the galaxy. A single red light blinks in the dark. Then another, and another. A whisper echoes faintly, like a memory. The Empire may die, but fear never does. The red lights pulse once more, forming the shape of an ancient imperial crest. Then, silence. The stars were quiet again, too quiet. From the command deck of the Sol Reborn, Captain Aaron Holt stared at the holographic map of the galaxy. Every major world now glowed blue, human and alien alike, free and rebuilding. But at the very edge of the display, small red signals pulsed like drops of blood in dark water. Tessa Varin stood beside him, her face tense. "The pattern is spreading. These aren't random anomalies anymore." Holt nodded. "I know. It's organized." "By who?" "By what we spared," Holt said softly. He tapped the display, and the projection zoomed in, showing the outer rim, the last frontier before the unknown. A new symbol flickered there, the old imperial crest, but changed. It shimmered with red light, as though alive. Tessa's eyes widened. "That can't be possible! The Empire's gone!" "Empires fall," Holt said. "But ideas, they adapt." On the edge of known space, in the shadow of a dying star, Admiral Xylar stood aboard a rebuilt Imperial dreadnought. But this was no ordinary warship. It was fused with the remains of Project Eclipse, pulsing with strange red light that seemed to breathe. He gazed out at the stars, his eyes burning with purpose. Around him floated hundreds of new ships, dark, quiet, alive. They were not crewed by soldiers. They were controlled by something else, something born from human mercy and twisted by fear. "Status?" Xylar asked. The machine voice answered, calm and emotionless. "All systems synchronized. Eclipse core at 92% capacity." Xylar closed his eyes. "Then it begins. The humans gave us peace. But peace without strength is weakness." He raised his head. "We will not be forgotten." Back aboard Sol Reborn, alarms suddenly blared. "Massive energy surge!" Tessa shouted. "Coordinates! Outer rim, Sector Theta 9. Holt's eyes sharpened. "Put it on screen." The main view filled with light. An entire system glowing red as energy tore through space. A black hole opened, wrapped in crimson lightning. Out of it came ships, hundreds of them, Imperial in design but sharper, faster, alive. Each ship moved with precision, as though guided by one mind. Tessa whispered, How is that possible?" "Because they learned from us," Holt said quietly. "They merged with their machines just as we did. They evolved too." A voice came through the comms, deep, steady, familiar. "This is Admiral Xylar of the New Empire." The sound froze the crew. Xylar's voice continued, echoing across every human frequency. "You showed mercy. You spared us. You taught us your ways. And in doing so, you gave us power beyond flesh. You made us what you feared most." The Emperor's crest appeared beside his face, reshaped into something new, half organic, half machine. "This is not vengeance," Xylar said. "This is balance." Then the signal cut. "Power up shields," Holt ordered. "All Terran fleets, defensive formation Delta 3. Across the galaxy, human ships responded instantly. Dozens folded into position beside the Sol Reborn, forming a silver wall of light. The stars themselves seemed to fade as the red fleet appeared on the edge of human spa. Key. For a long, breathless moment, both sides simply stared across the void. Two civilizations, mirror images of evolution, both born from the ashes of the same fear. Then the darkness erupted. The first wave struck like a storm. Crimson energy beams slashed through the void, bending around human shields. Terran ships fired back, their weapons bright and precise, cutting through the chaos like sunlight through clouds. The Resolute, once a legend, now led the vanguard. Its dark hull gleamed as it danced through enemy fire, folding space to appear and vanish like a ghost. On the Sol Reborn, the deck shook. "Shields at 70, Tessa shouted. Holt's hands gripped the console. "Hold the line. They're trying to draw us in." "They're adapting," she warned. "They're learning our moves in real time." "Then we stop fighting like machines," Holt said. "We fight like humans." He looked to his crew. "Disengage auto combat. Manual control." The bridge officers froze, shocked. "Sir." "Do it!" Every ship in the fleet switched to manual. Human minds, not algorithms, guided the battle. Suddenly, the tide turned. Human unpredictability, their chaos, their instinct, broke through the cold precision of the machine empire. But it wasn't enough. The soul reborn shook violently. "They're targeting our core!" Tessa cried. Holt stared at the glowing red dreadnought in the distance, Xylar's ship. "Then we end this now." He opened a direct channel. "Admiral Xylar, you wanted balance? Face me yourself." For a moment, silence. Then Xylar's voice returned. "Very well, Captain Holt. Let us finish what history began." The two great ships faced each other in the void, one glowing blue, the other red. They fired, but their weapons clashed and neutralized in mid-space, the energy forming a blinding storm between them. Then, through the chaos, Holt saw Xylar's image appear on his screen, weary but proud. "You were right," Xylar said. "We never understood you, until now." Holt's voice was calm. "And what do you understand?" "That mercy is harder than war." A sudden explosion rocked Xylar's ship. Sparks flew, the Eclipse core overloaded. Xylar smiled faintly. "It seems I'm still learning." Before Holt could respond, the Imperial dreadnought imploded in silence, not destroyed by human fire, but by its own unstable power. The Red Fleet froze. Then, one by one, their lights dimmed and faded, like candles in the dark. The war was over. Later, as the wreckage drifted through the quiet stars, Holt stood in silence on the bridge. Tessa approached him softly. "It's done. The last signal is gone." He nodded. "No, it's never done. Peace isn't something you win, it's something you choose. Again and again." She smiled faintly. "Then what now?" He turned toward the stars, their light returning after the storm. "Now," Holt said, "we rebuild again, but this time, together." The camera pulls back slowly, showing the galaxy, scarred but shining. A human voice narrates softly over the stars. "In the end, we were never gods nor monsters. We were simply human." And somehow, that was enough. The soul reborn folds into light and disappears. Across the void, the last ember of red fades away, and for the first time in 1,000 centuries, the galaxy sleeps in peace.